Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a first look at the Sony G-Series 16 to 55mm f2.8 lens. Now this is fairly expensive for an APS-C lens, a little under $1,300 US, and I just received it from Sony for review purposes. Now I haven't tested it yet, but what I can tell you is that at least at first glance and first feel, this is a high quality piece of kit. It is dense. The zoom ring, very, very smooth, as is the focus ring, and it just feels like a G Master lens, even though, of course, it's only wearing the G Series logo. It certainly is priced as I would imagine a G Master in the APS-C realm would be. So I'm not sure why Sony didn't just call this a G Master, because at $1,300 for an APS-C zoom lens, it certainly looks, feels, and is priced like something that should be wearing a G Master badge. But all of that aside, I'm excited to test this out. This is proof that Sony has not walked away from APS-C lens engineering, design, and fabrication. All of the reviews that I've seen for this glass have been stellar. So unlike the A6600 and the 6100 that this was sent to me with, those cameras were not welcomed with open arms. They were not heralded as being game changers. But this lens, on the other hand, I have not seen a single negative thing about other than its price point. So who is this lens for? Even though I haven't tested it, if we were to assume that it is as stellar as other people have made it out to be, it's for those of you that do not want to migrate to full frame, that are looking for a zoom lens that can live on a camera like the A6600, which is the best APS-C camera that Sony has right now, or the budget-friendly A6100. Now, while I would not recommend it for a camera like the A6100, simply because the 6100 is more of a budget-friendly camera at, you know, $600 US for body alone, that certainly doesn't mean that you can't save the money on the body and invest it in the glass. But I don't see, you know, the savings with this lens really paired with any camera, simply because it's expensive enough that, you know, if you think you're saving money, you're not. And I mean on your lens purchase. Often I will recommend going with full frame glass, even for APS-C cameras, because if you ever migrate to a full frame camera, you'll have a lens that will already work with it. And, you know, most full frame glass from Sony that isn't G Master is actually right in this price range or less. Again, $1,300 for this lens. That means that you could technically pick up, I'll put this over here, something like, well, not the A7R4 that I'm bringing over with the shotgun mic, but I've got the 24 to 105 f4 lens on there. And remember, this is an f2.8, but it is an APS-C lens. So much like if you deal with crop factor, that f2.8 is not a true, that's a 35mm equivalent f2.8. So in full frame, that is not f2.8. But this is just for a size comparison and pricing comparison. The 24 to 105 obviously is going to give you a lot more range, but you'll have the crop factor on the APS-C. In addition to that, it's far, I would say it's a bulkier, it's a larger lens, it's heavier. It's not twice the size of the 16 to 55, but it's close to that. And the fact that it's very close in terms of pricing generally would make me say you should go with the 24 to 105. In fact, I even went out and purchased it after not being in love with it when I reviewed it years ago. So that tells you something about it. And I'll probably do a video revisiting the 24 to 105. It really is an exceptional piece of glass if you get a good copy. But here it's all about if you're going to stay in the APS-C world. You know, at one point in my life, I thought I would, you know, shy away. I wasn't really interested in full frame anymore. And if my mindset was still there, and I know a lot of you out there, maybe not the majority, are still in that realm, that you really want your gear to be as light as possible, you're not looking to break your back, and this isn't about strength, it's about, you know, do you want to throw out your back shooting all day, whether you're a pro or a hobbyist, and believe me, pros can get away with APS-C. It really depends on whether or not the client likes your work. I know a lot of clients are only interested in what the camera gear looks like until they see your work, and that makes sense. You know, they're paying you. They expect you to have very expensive gear in order to deliver what they have in terms of expectations. But let's face it, most clients don't really know what cameras are going to yield necessarily. So again, if you're trying to keep it light, this is exactly the kind of lens, at least based on what I've seen and how it's been received, that you're going to want, because this could primarily live on your APS-C body until you actually need something with a longer reach, until you get into the real telephoto game and extend out to, birding, things of that nature, wildlife photography. That's something the 16 to 55 isn't going to be ideal for, but everything else, this lens pretty much, I could see myself having this live on something like the A6600 or again the 6100. I mean, the 6100 is a very budget-friendly camera. It doesn't have as many features. It doesn't have the battery life of the A6600, but it does have the 11 frames per second. It does have uncapped 4K video, so you don't have a time limitation. And with a lens like this that has stabilization, that is exceptionally bright at f2.8 for an APS-C lens, that is a zoom lens, again, native from Sony with stabilization, it's an impressive feat. So I will be shooting it on the 6100. I'll also be testing this lens with the 6300 that I own and the 6500. Those are the only other Sony APS-C cameras I have to test it on. I will not be testing this on a full frame body. That doesn't really make any sense. I can recommend full frame lenses for APS-C cameras, but I cannot recommend an APS-C lens for a full frame body, even though it will work in a crop mode. And I mean, I could test it on my A7R4. I'll get 26 megapixel stills out of it, actually more resolution than I'll get out of the 6100, but I still would never purchase it for my A7R4. So that's primarily the reason that I don't see myself recommending this to anybody who has a full frame camera. Even if it could render the resolution, I still don't see the benefit. It's not going to be 16 to 55. You're going to be dealing with that crop factor. So that's not fantastic. And with the amount of money spent there, you could definitely get yourself a better full frame zoom, in my opinion, likely the 24 to 105 that I was just, I had in frame. But overall, I'm excited about this glass. And again, it does represent Sony coming back to APS-C. Not only did they launch new bodies, we got new glass. This is the way it's supposed to work. And that's a good thing. So while I'm late to covering the 6100 and the 16 to 55, hopefully better late than never. But this is an exciting piece of glass. It's just a pricey one at that. But I think the quality will be there. It's just, again, you have to be someone that is not interested in leaving the smaller footprint of the APS-C world. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them at that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.